Zen Story. At the foot of the mountains stood an old monastery surrounded by gardens that glistened with dew in the morning light. It was a place where pilgrims came to rest their hearts and quiet their minds. Silence ruled everywhere, broken only by the wind moving through the bamboo, singing its eternal song. Inside the monastery sat the old master who had listened to silence for many years, and around him gathered the young students. They knew that words were not important, and yet they asked because the human heart always longs to hear an answer. One morning, a student decided that he must find the truth. He rose earlier than the others, walked into the garden, and watched the mist lifting over the mountains. In his chest grew a question that felt older than himself. He went to the master and sat before him. In the silence between them, he felt restless, but slowly he realized that even restlessness was part of the path. The master allowed him to sit a long time, until impatience faded and only simple attention remained. Time slowed down. Every breath became an entire universe. The student noticed the sound of the trees, the drop of dew on his sleeve, the beating of his own heart. Suddenly he understood that the answer would not arrive as a word, but as silence itself. He realized that everything he was seeking was already present in this very moment. He rose and bowed to the master. The master smiled softly, and that was enough. The days passed, and the student began to wander through the monastery paths. Sometimes he sat for hours by the pond, where white fish moved like pieces of light, and he learned to listen to their quiet presence. Sometimes he walked into the bamboo grove and stood among the tall stalks that bent in the wind, reminding him that he too could bend without breaking. Every day was the same and yet entirely new. Every breath was fresh, though it seemed so ordinary. One evening he gazed at the starry sky and a question arose that no longer had shape. It was not why, nor how, but a simple feeling of connection. In that moment, it seemed to him that the stars were breathing with him, that the mountains were listening to his silence, and that he was nothing more and nothing less than another stone in the river of time. There was nothing to achieve, nothing to understand, only being. In the morning, he returned to the master and sat beside him. This time he needed no words. They sat together as the sun rose above the mountains. The tea on the table slowly cooled. Birds sang, and everything was complete. The student finally understood that Zen was not found in answers, but in attention itself, awakening in every moment. From that day on, he no longer searched. He simply walked, breathed, and lived. When the master handed him a bowl of rice, he smiled. When the rain fell, he listened to the drops. When the wind blew, he felt its chill. Every moment was a gift, and none was small. Thus the path flows without beginning or end. Whoever sits and listens to silence will discover that silence itself is the answer.